Everybody, to integrate yourself. I'm your host, Allison Pelot, and you can find me on pureenergypdx.com. Today, I'm here with my good friend and soul sister, Rosanne Grace. We're going to talk about so many things. We're not even sure where this show is going to go today, but we know it's going to be good. So
we're in a freestyle.
Yep, that's right. So yeah, I just wanted, I was like, you got to come on my show because there's so many things going on, and we need to really, since we last talked, and I just wanted to give everybody a sense of hope today, and just some purpose and direction on, energetically where we're heading. Because just so many things are up in the air. You and I were just discussing how, California is getting ready to lock down again, and other states as well, and mask up, and because of this, Delta variant and everything. And it's, it's just a lot of just going back and forth with people and their energy, and going between fear and then, as soon as it seems like people are able to let go and relax again, we got to get back into this fear state again, and so I just see people just being kind of dragged all over the place with your emotions, and it's affecting people's health, and so especially their mental health, and that's my main concern, because like you and I have talked about some things in the future, and I've heard other people talk about this, is that mental health is going to be the main aspect of what's really going to be showing up for people in the coming years. This is what's going to probably break down first because of just the stress we've been under, and this back and forth stuff. So
it already is. Yes.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
I would love to hear your take on what's going on from your perspective. You've been working with a ton of people, like ever since you were on Paul Chek's podcast. Now you're getting tons of people come your way because they need help, they need direction, they need guidance, and we need more spiritual guidance right now. I'm seeing it's like the physical is limited in our, in how we can really see our own potential, is how I see it. And so if we can also integrate the spiritual aspects of ourselves and learn more about that, we're then able to expand our potential where it's really truly unlimited. And we're not boxing ourselves up into these places of feeling helpless, so yeah. So
you nailed it. And that is absolutely it. Because it is really about the fear program. And that's going to take its toll on all aspects of the body, the mental, emotional, spiritual, and intuitive physical bodies, not just the physical body. And I know, that's where most people start, because that's what they know. And you're right. It's still limited in many ways, because without the mental emotional integration and healing those components, it has no place else to go except the physical body. So it will show up in some way, shape, or form. And so, yes, after Paul Chek's podcast, I've been seeing over 100 people a month, which God. Insane.
That's a lot with what you do too. That's a lot.
It was a lot of energy. And I remember when it launched, it was overwhelming for, my human parts. I was like, I already had, a steady clientele, and I remember, I call it the divine or source consciousness, creator consciousness, whatever you want to call it. And I remember hearing that voice, like, are you fighting for your limitations right now? I was like, no, I just, my human would prefer not to work so many hours. And they're like, it's crunch time. And so what they're showing me, and I say they as, the divine or source or higher self, whatever you want to call it, was kind of like almost like a launch pad, or a roller coaster, like you're trekking up the hill. But that was the first, it's been going on. We've been experiencing, expanded states of consciousness. The whole initial lockdown with COVID was actually, from a metaphysical or multidimensional viewpoint, was like setting people up for their own awakening. People that hadn't gone through awakening, or those that had and were going into deeper awakening, and not being so distracted with their day-to-day lives or their jobs, or, going here and going there, and really having to face themselves, which was the whole point of the higher states of awareness or higher consciousness. It's like you have to get still at some point. You have to look in. And so I called it like the global dark night of the soul. Like everyone had to face themselves at some point. I loved it. I thought it was amazing. And again, going back to what you were saying, it really is about perspective, because I say all realities exist, all infinite infinities exist. And yet, which one are you tapping into? Mm-hmm. And I had a client ask me, can you describe or explain more about timelines? Because we are all operating on different timelines, and there are collective higher timelines. Collective higher timelines would be, no war, or, no poverty, global things that are healing the planet, healing the environment. So those are, bigger constructs, but we can't get there, like, if we're not dealing with the internal constructs or the internal program. So if I, right. Somebody's coming to me and they're in pain, and I tell them you're divine, they're not going to be able to bridge that gap. It's too far away, which is why we go through these different initiations of healing. And so, like you described, people coming through the physical, let's heal the physical first. Well, at least that takes care of one foundation, so you can build upon that, because you're not going to be able to tap into, greater awareness or connect with your divine self or spirituality if you're still in pain, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, or any other version. And so, getting back to those old programs, we are physically purging these old programs, these old limiting beliefs. It's not just changing a thought or changing a habit or changing a pattern. Cellularly, the DNA has been built on these old programs, the mental components or constructs. And so you're physically purging. And so there are some symptoms that come along with going through these higher initiations. And again, it's always for the highest and greatest good. It's always for our evolution and propelling us forward. And yet, like you said, if we don't have that guidance, we could feel out of sorts, we can feel untethered, we can feel crazy at times, and not knowing what it is, blaming it on the lockdown or blaming it on this. But really, it's always been there. We just haven't focused on it. So now this is giving us the opportunity to focus on that. And what is it that I really need in this moment? What is it that I really want in this moment? And I think you and I talked about this when we were visiting Oregon. It's like, well, what is your dream? It's like, well, first you have to know who you are before you can answer that question. And most people have no idea who they are.
That's very true. Yeah.
I found that old recording. I'm like, I got to post that.
And,
yeah. It was good.
That's great that you brought that up.
Late night raps with Allison.
Yeah. We were having some serious insights there. Like, it was like, oh my God. So yeah, that was great.
So yeah. So I say all realities exist and all perspectives exist. So the perspective dictates the reality. So how did I have an amazing year, or how do I continue to have amazing days or amazing months, one after another, when I'm meeting people or speaking with others, could be loved ones, could be clients that are struggling and challenged. It's like, because I've faced those parts of myself long ago. So I can have this perspective now. I can see the perfection in everything. Does my human have preferences? Of course it does. My human does not want to see people suffering, or children, or the environment. And yet we're also, with this latest initiation, being brought to a level of transmuting or alchemizing, alchemizing, turning everything into gold. It's turning everything into pure love, because the divine sees everything as pure love. The divine doesn't judge. And even though that's a very corrupted code and old program in many religions, that the Almighty is judging you, it's like, no, we judge. Humans judge. Ego judges. And It's like, the divine doesn't say this is good, bad, right, or wrong. That was all indoctrinated into us. And so it's a lot of unraveling these old programs to get that perspective of being able to see, yes, this does serve the highest and greatest good. And then going even beyond that and saying, okay, if we're all aspects of the divine, if the divine is pure love, then I too am pure love, and I can transmute or alchemize anything that is not pure love. So I just share with my clients, if you're seeing something that disturbs you in your field of awareness, it could be people arguing across the street, doesn't mean you're participating with it, or people arguing on social media, what have you. It's in your field of awareness because you have the power to transmute that. So you can send that pure love frequency into anything, into everyone. You know, I see chemtrails instead of resisting, because the divine doesn't resist. So how can I hold that frequency and still be present with that? I can send that pure love frequency. It's all energy. When you understand everything is energy, you can take the personal attachment out of it. And it's like, okay, this is, and it is work. I know a lot of people listening to this are gonna be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah. I can't make that jump from here to there. And it's like, do you want me to say that? Okay. We'll talk about the vaccines. There's a lot of people that are so pro and so against. It doesn't matter about the vaccine, just like so pro for your religion or so pro for your football team and so against this or so against this politician, but so pro for that one. It's just another, if you understand it's all a program, it literally is like, just replace vaccine for the president, just replace the president for genetically modified foods. Like, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Yeah. It's, if you understand the program is to divide and separate, then you have the power to either participate with the program or not. That is your power as the divine being. And I see a lot of light workers or awakened men and women that are still participating with it by, you know, lashing out at others for living in fear or getting the vaccine or not getting the vaccine. I mean, it's the same coin, really. It's just two sides of the same coin, but they don't realize they are perpetuating that program by participating with it. So what you resist persists, doesn't matter what it is. So versus, you know, live and let live, you know, I don't judge people. If I have family that has the vaccine, it's like, if that brings them comfort, you know, to their fears, then so be it. And again, once you understand it's all energy, transmute it, transmute the vaccine, transmute all of the energy of it into that pure love frequency. That is our power and that is our gift. And that's really why we're here, is to completely change those paradigms of duality, of fear-based, of programming, of repetitive cycles over and over and over. Because I only see it getting better. Like, if I say it all the time, how does it get any better than this? If this is already my reality, like, how does it get any better than this? Like, I get to travel around, I get to see all these beautiful places, I get to experience this, I get to interact with my beautiful clients all over the world. But I created that based on my perception. But you cannot hold that perception if you haven't dealt with the healing. You have to deal with all of those underpinnings and all of those underlying programs that have run us for eons, for lifetimes. It's not just this life, but that's where the point of focus is. That's where we can get to the root of it. So it doesn't have that control over us. We're not attached to it. But that is where the healing begins.
Exactly. That the attachment is the limiting factor in it all, really, is what we don't always understand.
You got it. That's the ego parts. I say the ego will fight for its limitations, where when I introduce my clients to their higher selves or their higher aspects, their inner child is already operating at the highest and greatest good. They already operate out of divine will versus ego's will. They don't operate out of the ego's agenda, but the ego is built off of fear and survival. And until we transmute those parts of the ego that were developed by the wounds from the inner child or those experiences growing up, until we heal those parts, the ego will never believe you that it can trust. Will never believe you that it's safe. Will never believe you that it's loved and taken care of. That's why there is certain steps in our initiation process to go through that healing, to be able to embody our divine selves, or that pure love frequency that we already are. And when I get into deeper constructs with clients that have been working with me for a while, it all comes down to this. If we all knew ourselves as the divine, none of this would exist. We wouldn't even be having this conversation right now, Allison, because we would all know ourselves as divine. There would be no separation. There would be no duality. There would be no polarity. There would be no good, bad, right, or wrong, no judgment, no war, no battles, no competing, no comparing. None of it would exist. So that's the real true corrupted code, is getting back to that. However you have to do it, doesn't matter.
Yeah, that brings us to what we talked about the other day too, which was divinity scarcity mindset, right?
Yeah,
and
that's the biz, because we're not taught that we are divine. We're taught everything opposite of the divine, and divine is something outside of us to either fear or to envy or to be judged by, instead of like, no, you are the divine. You have that power. You have that ability. And so you're right. That's where the ego will come in and be like, no, I don't believe you. I'll fight for my limitations. I can't be that great. I can't be that profound. Yes, you are. And so it's really just deprogramming those programs within ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's, we tend to think about, a scarcity mindset is about money, but there's a much deeper scarcity thing there going on. And it's, been going on for I don't know, from the beginning, right?
From the
beginning.
Religion,
how religion got so powerful in some respects. And because people just didn't trust that they were divine, and the divine comes through them. And we all have that ability. It is a process too, like you say. So, wherever you're at in that process, just start there and start, getting to that place eventually where you can become, get to know yourself enough, get comfortable with yourself, find your calm, start to trust yourself. And that also goes with your body, like there's a lot of, vulnerability around the body right now as it relates to the vaccine as well. And people are, not really trusting, the ability of their body, or that they can actually transmute the I can't talk today. Transmute the energy of the body, the energy. So the body like responds from a cellular, level, because your cells do respond to you. It responds to your thinking. It responds to your beliefs, and so even at that level, it's like, why aren't we paying attention to what we're saying to ourselves every day? Why aren't we paying attention to what's in our in our life, and what we're focusing on? Just at the bare minimum, start doing that first, right?
That's huge. Absolutely, because you are with you all day, every day, and so it's what are those old recordings in your head or in your mind or in your field saying to those parts, because your cells see you as God. Your inner child sees you as the divine. So if you're saying, oh, I don't feel good, they're like, oh, okay, I guess we don't feel good. So I tell my body, thank you for allowing my consciousness to be with you. Thank you for being that pure energy frequency all the time. And I was sharing with Allison before we began that I cut my knuckle twice yesterday, actually, this big bolt that was sticking out of the door. And I was just sending pure love into it. And there's nothing, there's no scar, there's no scratch. And so that's been part of the latest initiation, is what Allison was just speaking of, is alchemizing through the physical. It's not just, airy fairy and everything's pure love. It's like, no, I'm calling in the highest and holiest pure love frequency into my body, into my cells, into my consciousness, into whatever it is, my organs, my bones, my blood, even something, a cut, a rash, a scratch, something that that is in the physical with you, that is tangible. And I can see the results. I mean, there's not even a little like piece of skin, like I'm rubbing it and there's nothing. And when they first gave me this initiation, there was some hot coconut oil that blew out of the pan. I wasn't even touching the pan.
Oh my God.
Burnt my hand, got a big fat blister. It hurt. I felt it. And the divine's like, don't put ointment on it, Rosanne, like just pure love. And I sent that frequency into it and it completely cleared. There was no bump, no blister, no scarring, nothing. And it was gone in I don't even know. It was there and then it wasn't. And I know what hot coconut oil can do because I've had had skin peel off of me before. And so again, anything that you resist, anything in your field, anything around your body, anything in your mind, anything in your physical space can be transmuted, because once you understand it is all energetics, you can tune into that frequency. No different than like a placebo effect when you tell people, oh, you're healthy and you're good, and it's a sugar pill. Well, they did the same test in reverse, and they told, the subject, oh, you don't look so good. Or you feel okay? Are you sure you're not coming down with something? And within a matter of hours, that subject had flu-like symptoms from nothing. So it is, again, the mental capacity to shift the energy, not just of yourself, but of others, of things around you. Like I said, if you see someone arguing, like, I can send that pure love frequency into whatever they're arguing about, whatever their body is about. And all of a sudden I see them stop, and they're not aware of it. They don't even know what just happened.
It's real. I mean, it is real. Yeah. We just haven't learned how to manage our energy, really.
And a lot of people don't believe it either. Again, if you're operating out of that subconscious belief that I'm not good enough, or I'm not powerful enough, or I'm not healthy enough, then that's going to be what runs the conscious mind. So it's first starting there. We have to heal at the subconscious level, which is why I introduce my clients all to their inner child, because that's who's really running the show. And it's just easier and more comfortable for people to visualize themselves at 5 years old or 10 years old versus talking about the subconscious, which is an abstract part of us.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
So it's just an easier, more graceful way of healing those parts that have been carrying those old programs from mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, society, religion, you name it. It's all across the board. And it's really liberating those parts of them so they can feel lighter. Because if you're carrying that density around, you're not going to be able to hold that frequency. It's just not going to, it's like trying to tune into, another station, and you have no antenna. It's like, no, you've got to clean that first and clear it. So you are that pure, clear channel to receive.
Right. Yeah. And it's so funny that you had mentioned that talk we had that night back when we were in Oregon together. Because at that, as you were talking, I remembered talking that same night about these masters of, who I think we were talking about just people who had, been able to defy the odds of the physical, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that this is exactly what we're talking about is what they have done in the past to show people, hey, you can do this. Even if you want to bring Jesus into the mix, he probably was doing the same thing. It's just,
well, he learned from the ascended masters, the Far East, the Eastern masters, the Tibetan masters, and the Indian masters, and all of that. And yet again, all those different years and different lineages and different timelines, people still regarded them as, holier than thou or something greater than us. And it's like, no, they're showing you can do this. But again, you have to be willing to let go of the old stories in order to embody this version of yourself. That's all it is.
Yeah. Because the stories are really what's limiting your energy expansion. I just had a discussion with a client today about this. And sometimes it's hard for us because you're like, well, that's exactly what she said. She says, it's hard to not let go of this story, but it's really the only way.
Absolutely. And it's like, well, what are the consequences of holding on to that story, or what are the payoffs, or what are the, because there is a payoff and there's a price. So the payoff would be like, I don't want to let go of this story because I get my needs met by being needy. Okay, so the ego's being honest. It wants to stay needy because it knows it's going to get its needs met, even if it's dysfunctional, love or attention. Fine, that's what we get. That a lot of us got that growing up. If this is the only way I got to get my needs met, then I'll just keep doing it. I'm 50 years old. I'm still playing needy. Or the clients that are ready to heal, they know the consequences based on the price I've had to pay. I've had 5 divorces. My body sucks. It's hurting. It's in pain. So these are the prices we pay for playing small, for not living into our potential, for not honoring and loving those parts of ourselves unconditionally. And again, when you only know limitations, it's hard to even hear these things, that you are limitless, and yet you are. And so, like Allison said, even if you're taking little steps every day to rewire, because it is, I give my clients brain entrainment exercises. Hold on, I'm going to get a little more light in here.
Go ahead. Yeah.
This is starting to get a little dark.
Yeah. Is it like 8 o'clock?
I'm on the East Coast. Yes. It's 7:30 or whatever. Yes. So yeah, that's been an adjustment. I'm like, what time is it? What time zone am I in?
How do you ever get used to the time?
It takes about a week or so.
Yeah.
I get adjusted. Central time was not bad. East Coast time, definitely. I'm like,
it's a big adjustment.
Starting to wake up at, like 8 o'clock, and I was waking up at like between 9 and 10. I was like, oh, good thing I don't start that early, because I got like 5 minutes to get online. Pull it together. So funny. Yeah, I've learned as we've made our way to the East Coast now to give myself a little buffer to adjust. And again, the divine always knows. Like I teach this because I live this. I do this every day. It's like the divine knows what you need, because you are the divine. If you tune into that, it's like, I don't question if somebody squeezes into my schedule and I was like, oh, I guess they're supposed to be there. Or somebody's like, I can't make it today. I was like, oh, well, I got a waiting list. I'll put you in there. If it's like, oh, we are being directed to this location, it's like, oh, that place isn't, available. Oh, well, something better is there. Like, I don't doubt anymore. And of course, my old programming was trying to micromanage everything, control the outcome, making sure I was safeguarded, and the ego was built for survival, but it's gotten to the point for most humans where it's running the show, and that wasn't its design. It was to get you out of harm's way and spike that adrenaline for brief moments. But when we're constantly running on adrenaline, because you work with clients that have burnt themselves out and going, and it's like, yeah, it's just keeping it truly at the base core of why we do that, is because we don't want to really hear the truth. And when we're quiet and we're still, we do. And that scares us or shames us. And so we avoid it with more and more distractions, which is why I said last year, with people going into quarantine, was probably the best thing that could have happened to us as a global collective. And yet there's still people that are trying to get back to their normal. And it's like, that's not the gift here.
It's almost impossible to get back to that. I feel like in some respects, like you couldn't even do it if you tried right now. Like, you know what I mean? At least I can't, I couldn't, I don't know.
No.
It just feels like we're not in that type of energy anymore. The hustle.
No. Yeah. And like I said, those timelines too, those, they don't really exist. So it's like, and going back to describing what a timeline is, all timelines are like, if you make this decision, I'm going to take this job. Well, that timeline takes you on a different trajectory versus I'm going to start my own business. That's a whole different trajectory. Nothing. There's no good, bad, right, or wrong answers. All are going to lead you to the right place eventually. Some are going to be more divinely guided. If you're listening to your ego, like, oh, I have to take this job because I'm going to make more money, then you may have some pitfalls. Like when I was in college, my aptitude test had me equal on both sides. Like, you can go into business, you can go into arts. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to make any money in arts. I went into business. And there was a lot of pain, anxiety, frustration, hurt, annoyance in that avenue. Eventually it got me to where I was going, which is definitely, healing arts. It wasn't the art I was thinking of when I was 18, but I made it to where I was meant to be. So you always will make it to your destination. It's just how in alignment do you want to be? How soon do you want to experience that? Or is there more lessons or more pitfalls that need to be experienced for you to align yourself fully with the divine? Because most of us don't believe we're worthy to even be in alignment. Kind of going back to your scarcity, the divine scarcity. mentality, because we're not taught that we are favored at that level. Like, I don't doubt that the divine has something, they've already master planned my whole life to this point. So it's like, and it's not giving my power to something outside of myself, because I know myself as the divine. So it's like my divine self is orchestrating this beautifully. And again, going back to what you said about the limitations of the ego, I say to my clients all the time, my ego would have never orchestrated this. Like, I would have never planned this. I would have limited myself in some way, shape, or form. And now it's like, where are we going to go this weekend? I mean, yes, I already know where I'm going for most of the year, but once in a while I have a little weekend open. It's like, they're going to surprise me. It's going to be fabulous. It's going to be beautiful.
And it always is, huh?
It always is. You work, especially when, I work for the divine. So that is part of the deal too. It's like, I take care of this. So I know I'm getting taken care of, and it's not like, but it's not arrogant. And it's, you should expect that. You should expect that everything works out in your favor. But the ego has collected so much proof and evidence over its lifetime of how things aren't easy, or how things don't work out, or how, somebody gets something that you don't. And so it will continue to repeat that, because it's collected proof and evidence. So it just continues to collect more and more proof and evidence. And so I teach my clients to start collecting proof and evidence how everything does work in your favor, how easy everything is, how synchronistic everything is. And that becomes your baseline. That becomes your day-to-day normal. And that's not, then it's not as surprising. You're like, yeah, I do expect that. And there's nothing wrong with expecting it. People say, oh, expectation lets you down. It's like, well, when it's expectation coming from a place of lack, but when it's expectation coming from a place of, divine union, then of course it's always divinely guided.
Yeah. If it's like, I was reading, I've talked about this book on the show before, but it's called A Happy Pocket Full of Money. And he talks about the difference in the terms want and desire, and want is more, and in his perspective, want is more of a kind of a more expectations, like neediness kind of place to be, and desire is more like, hey, like what you're saying is there's more of a trust factor there that things are going to work out, and you're just setting the tone for your life in a way, right? And and you're like, this, and it gives you the purpose and direction in which to go as well. And so I like to think of it like that. And expectations are an interesting thing, because I think a lot of times people, they put expectations with obligations, and really we could change that, like you said, an expectation to something that is, like better than I could have ever imagined. How about that?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's like,
absolutely. And you're right. Want is from a place of resistance, a place of lack, scarcity, neediness, entitlement, versus thank you for this or better. Or like you said, you used the word desire. I desire this or better. It's like, I just thank it in advance, like it's already done. Thank you for this or better.
Yeah. Because it really is, in a way. Like there's, and it's really this past, I don't even know time anymore, really, but I think this past 6 months, maybe. I don't know.
It's already August. It's
something
crazy.
like that. I have been thinking a lot about the now, and really what that means, and what it is to be in the now, and what it is to really integrate that into your life. And realizing more and more that when we get caught up so much in the past and the future, this is true suffering for most people. And most people are in those places with their mind, right? Especially now with all the fear, we're thinking about what's going to happen in the future, all these different scenarios. When what we don't really, or what has happened in the past as well, like what we've heard on the news, or what we've experienced in our own life, and worrying about that happening again, when there's something missing, where we haven't learned that to appreciate and love where you are in this moment, and the people that are around you, and the role they play, good or bad, without real judgment, just really true appreciation for the role everybody plays in your life, because, at some point, if they trigger you, they're helping you
Yes.
with your self-help journey. Right.
Yes.
So
and that takes a lot of responsibility. Yeah. That takes a lot of responsibility.
Well, self-awareness.
And power. Yeah. Self-awareness to be like, oh, I see them showing me my triggers right now, so I could heal. They're a great teacher. But it took me years to get that.
It takes
I was
some
a
time.
super good victim. Yeah. They're doing this to me. How dare they?
Yeah.
Why me? Like, oh, you name it. I did it. I experienced it. And when we care, and what people don't understand is, when we operate from that frequency or that vibration, you're only going to attract more of those teachers, more of those indiscretions or disloyalties or triggers or hurts or wounds or heartbreak, because we're the common denominator. And I learned that like 20 some years ago when I first started listening to Source after my dad transitioned, and I was driving and I heard, you're the common denominator in all your relationships. I'm like, damn it. I pulled over. I was crying. I was a mess. I was like, son of a biscuit. Like that's me. And I love math. So of course the divine uses that to, common denominator against me, not against me, but to get my awareness. And they were right. I had the same bosses over and over and over again. I dated the same guy over and over and over again, just different names, different places, different people. But because my frequency was down in that poor me, I'm a victim mode, I got, again, going back to the ego, collecting more proof and evidence. I would just go to the next one and collect more proof and evidence. Collect more proof, and not realizing it was me all along. And so first and foremost, I invite, if those things are showing up, stop repeating the story.
Yes.
Stop telling the story to yourself. Stop telling the story to other people about how horrible your parents were or how shitty your ex was. Like, stop and start rewriting the story. Like, I am so grateful for that lesson, or completing that lesson, so I can have this awareness now, or to learn to love those parts of myself that I gave away repeatedly, whatever it is. But again, it comes a lot of responsibility. And you have to have that power, that will. I say your willingness is everything. Otherwise, nothing's going to change. So you have to have that will to want things to be better, to start looking at yourself from that place of pure responsibility.
Yeah. And that's also like resolving the trauma, if there's trauma to be resolved or transmuted, right? Because sometimes the stories for some people are they've just never resolved it, as well. And so, but then it
brings closure, because otherwise there's no closure. You're 75 still complaining that mom didn't give you love and attention. It's
exactly. Yeah.
There's no closure there. It'll continue. And being, doing quantum healing and stuff, like I work with clients in past life scenarios, and guarantee you, if you didn't heal it in this life, it's carrying through to the next one. You're not getting over it. So I just say you might as well buck up and do it now, because you don't want to spend another 10 lifetimes or 10,000 lifetimes or whatever it is completing that lesson, because you're not going to remember. You're going to forget again, and you're going to have the same, tools that you have now, the same hangups that you have now, the same addictions or phobias you have now. So it's like, the healing has to be now. It's never too late. It's you have lifetimes, but why would you want to wait?
Exactly. And in the now, is the time you can practice creating your new reality, because this is what's going to create your reality, is what you're doing now, right? And what you're thinking about now, what you're focusing on now. And if you're having fun, enjoying the moment, really, really, have the best time with the people that you're talking to or connecting with, or, taking on the energy of whatever you want in that moment. It's really, it's great to then, that's what then gets created, instead of the old stories you're telling yourself over and over again. Right.
Exactly. And start doing what you love doing. Absolutely.
So it's creation.
Start doing things that you love doing when you were little.
Yeah.
And creation is your inner child. Creation is your birthright and your authentic self. But if you're doing stuff because your ego's like, oh, well, this is how we always did it, or what will people think if we do it this way instead of our way? Like, you have to start being compassionate with those parts, not negating it. Because I have clients who are like, well, I try just, try and shut it out. I was like, or I'm like, you're not killing your ego. Like, ego keeps you in your body. So you're not going to get rid of it, but you can transmute it with love and compassion, because that part was hurt many times. And so the only one that can liberate you is you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
You are the
I
one.
agree. You are it.
You're the one you've been waiting for.
Exactly. There's nothing, no one's coming to save you. It is all you.
That's very true. And so, yeah. And so that's a big leap for some people. But
it's doable. If I could
so
do it,
doable.
and I teach my clients all over every day, they're doing it and having amazing experiences and freedoms and liberation and completion and peace. I'm so
surprised
and ease
at how
grace.
easy it seems to be lately too. Like this is such a, you and I have talked about this before too, like how in the past it seemed a lot more, there's a lot more steps, effort, denseness around it. And it seems to be, the energy is really, I don't know if clearing is the right word, but it's clearing pretty quickly.
Yes.
And,
very accelerated. I said the same thing to one of my clients the other day. I was like, what you've achieved in weeks, and granted, my clients have all done some level of work before they come to see me. That's kind of the deal. And yet what they are completing in weeks' time took me years. Years of going through the thick ass mud of my healing.
Many John McMullen workshops.
Yeah, lots of trudging, lots of medicine work, lots of ceremonies, lots of workshops, lots of, meditating and healing. And it's amazing to see them step into their mastery and liberating those parts of themselves from those wounded stories or those old attachments or limiting beliefs, whatever it is. And it's like, I went through all of that so I can teach a much more graceful and easy way. But you are right. It is also the collective energy and the higher frequencies that are coming in. I mean, if you want some more science to it, you can look at the Schumann resonance. You can look at the solar flares. Like, these are all impacting us. It's not just something happening out there. It's all energy once again. And it participates with us as much as we participate with it. So it is shifting us collectively. So there are more people awakening. There are more people questioning their reality. There are more people seeking within, or seeking answers, at least curious. And so I think that plays a big part in what you're saying, and contributing to the ease factor of how accessible it is for people to shift that state of awareness or that consciousness. Whereas before, we didn't have those frequencies supporting us to launch us further and further.
Yeah. So it sounds like that consciousness, we've upgraded our consciousness, and to be able to do that, right? Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, we are going through, it's a simultaneous like dance with our internal desire to heal or evolve or elevate. And then these universal energies coming in to help give us a little bump, a little uplift. And so it's like enhancing the trajectory of where we were, even 10 years ago.
Yeah. It seems really different
amazing
to me. I know.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Cause I work with energies all the time. And so being aware of these frequencies, like I was talking to a client today, and I remember when, a couple years ago, even just like 3 years ago, we'd get an upgrade. Those energy upgrades would come into our fields, and I would feel it, and it would be like 2 months to integrate. Like, you might have 2 days, you might have 2 hours now. Like, they're coming in so fast. Like, those states of awareness just keep expanding greater and greater. And it's not like there's an end point. You just keep evolving. If you're transmuting through the physical and energetics, it's like, what are you going to be doing next week? Like, I'm excited. That's why I say, I'm very
it seems to get better and better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally.
Well, do you think we're going towards some kind of a golden age? Because in the past, the golden ages have been the highest consciousness levels for people, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And and in hypnosis too, I asked that question a lot. Like, has this particular client ever been this consciously aware, or this consciously evolved? And they said this is the first time they believed it. or this, or no, they haven't. This is the first time in human form. Like, it's easy to be high consciousness when you're not in the 3D density too. So there's other factors, but this is, this is why we came here, is to transcend all of those limitations, all of those programs, all of the corrupted codes, all the deviations or the desecrations, to knowing ourselves as divine, or knowing our divine, knowing our divinity, our divine selves. Yeah. Because then it's kind of like, you don't have to play in the lower dimensions anymore.
Yeah. And it's really interesting that I've seen so many people really have these epiphanies, or want to start working on themselves, or, start doing some self-development. When I never would have guessed some of these people would have done that, in the past.
Oh, it's amazing. I had a client.
It's all happening at the same time.
It's beautiful. Yes. And a lot of people are awakening. So the clients that I work with, or people that you're working with, Allison, like, it's like you're supporting them so they can support others, because there's going to be others waking up and having questions, and we're all way showers to those around us. And so it's like you're kind of like building momentum, building that wave. And so it trickles out to the next one, and floods out to the next one, and pours out to the next one. But yeah, going back to what you're saying about, some spontaneous awakening. Like, I had a client that came in to see me a couple of years ago, and she's like, I don't know what happened, but I was just guided to come here, and I don't know what's going on, but I can't eat my junk food. I can't smoke my cigarettes. I can't drink my beer. And it was hilarious.
Oh my God.
She was too funny, but it was like, they flipped the switch on her. And so that's what I'm saying. We're getting this extra boost. It's not just because we're all seeking and sitting in meditation. That's, that's kind of false advertising in the spiritual world. You don't need that. Spend time with yourself, go on a hike, like, start talking to yourself. That's all you need. It's just you anyway. It doesn't matter where you are, or who you're with, or what you're doing. It's that self-focus and that self-love. But I thought that was hilarious, because
that is hilarious.
I was like, well, they needed you to wake up, and accelerated that process real quick. So
yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah. She's like, I can't, this isn't working for me anymore. Darn.
Yeah. She's like, exactly. Can't distract myself anymore.
I love how you say talk to yourself too, because I do that all the time. Sometimes in the shower, talking to myself. My husband's like, who are you talking to? I'm like, myself. Doesn't everybody do that?
I do it internally, Allison. So
I do it out loud sometimes, Rosanne. So yeah, it sounds. I'm having a genuine conversation with myself in the shower.
Jeff did wake up one night, my partner, and he said, I woke up to go to the bathroom, and I came back, and you were having a conversation with yourself in 2 different languages. I said, really? Do you know what I said, did you recognize what I was saying? He's like, no, I have no idea. And he said, I said 2 different languages. And I was like, how do you feel about that? Because I was like, what's his take? And he goes, oh, I thought it was fascinating. I'm like, oh, I'm glad you said that, because I don't know, I might have been a little like, what's happening?
Like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
Is it a language that you already know how to speak, or is he doesn't know?
In some world I do. I don't know. Yeah, I do hear a language, especially when I hit that theta state. I'll be able to talk in a different language to whatever voice is talking to me, but I can't tell you if it's like Arabic, or if it sounds like an old language of some kind, or a star language. Like it could be from this planet. I have no idea, because I don't really study languages, but yeah, I could speak Spanish in my dreams, but I'm not really fluent with Spanish in this life. I'd like to be.
Me either. I can speak some, but not fluently. That is one thing I would like to do eventually. We'll see if that happens. Okay. How much time do you have? Because you have till 5 o'clock my time, or do you need to go?
Yes, that's 7:30. I have a little bit. Why? What do you have? What do you have for me?
Well, I just thought we could talk a little bit about, do you want to touch upon, something told me you want to touch upon past lives a little bit before we before we end the show. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Let's see. Okay. So yes. All right. I got a yes.
Okay.
What would you like to know? No, just kidding.
How did this work in our healing process, I guess, with people, like if they're, how does it benefit someone to know about their past life,
Beautiful. So, and that's a beautiful question, Allison, because it doesn't necessarily benefit everybody.
Yeah.
It's only if somebody is carrying an attachment, meaning a belief, a story, a hang up, obligation, burden, love, or wound from another life that they haven't let go of yet, or healed or transmuted. So that's one of the main reasons that a certain past life will show up with a client. The other main reason will be purpose, mission, theme, reason for being here. Mm-hmm. So they will show them, because you've had thousands, million, who knows how many lifetimes. And yet the divine picks specific lifetimes for my clients to see that are usually related to a common theme. Like, you came here to be a teacher, you came here to be a leader, and then we'll show them like heads of tribes, or heading a movement, or philanthropy, or whatever it is in those other lifetimes as a direction for this lifetime. Back in the day, like I say, I work with more light workers now, so those are more the themes of what shows up nowadays. Before, clients would come to me and they would be seeking more healing, we'll say. Mm-hmm. So, it could be physical ailment, or relationship, or some other story. And those particular lifetimes would showcase what wasn't healed in that lifetime. So one of my clients had been in 2 different motorcycle accidents, both times injuring the right side. Went into a past life. He was a soldier. He was wounded on the battlefield, but the love of his life thought he died, and she killed herself.
Oh gosh.
So he came back to the village to find this out and never forgave himself. So you're carrying that imprint, you're carrying that wound with you into the following life. And so people are like, well, how is that related? It's like, it's the same side. And this is why they showed him. It's like, you have to, otherwise you're going to keep
reminding him of that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Because you haven't healed it. So it will keep showing up.
So it's physically manifesting. Yeah.
That's why I said, if you haven't healed in the mental, emotional bodies, it has nowhere else to go. So it's going to show up in the physical, even if that means another lifetime, because your consciousness doesn't die just because your body recycles itself. The consciousness of that soldier was the same consciousness of my client, is going to repeat. And so carrying like I have a birthmark on my leg, and I asked Source, I do every once in a while I'll get like a surrogate session where, one of my friends I can hypnotize, and Source will speak or channel through that person. And I asked, what's the birthmark from? And because usually birthmarks are imprints from other lifetimes as well. And they said, that was from a child. And I could see like a blonde, curly haired little girl. Obviously I'm not blonde. I don't have children this lifetime. It was another lifetime. And they said, that's where she would hold you and she would kiss you there. Aww. And it's right on my thigh. So it's the height of a child's face. Like her head was right there. And so and I have clients that have, were burned in another life and have big birthmarks on their, their body and are gunshot wounds. And so, yes, so there's still that factor. I don't see as many of those people, but it still shows up,
Yeah.
Well, because if they haven't healed it, then it's going to come in some way.
Yeah. So it's good to resolve that. Then they, because it's energy, right? And otherwise it just stays with them. That's really interesting. What about the light workers that you're now working with mostly around the past lives? What are the things you're seeing there?
Like I said, a lot of them are being shown more of the higher timelines, like
okay.
what some people call like New Earth, and just like the ease and grace and how beautiful things are. Some of them are being shown like you were a warrior, and showing them the consequences of being a warrior. And they're like, you don't have to be a warrior in this lifetime. You can share information, you can stand for what you believe in, but it doesn't have to look like this anymore.
Oh,
So
right.
you can be a peaceful warrior or peaceful light worker and be that way shower in a completely different way. It doesn't have to be through resistance or force anymore. And so I see a lot of that repeated. What else? A lot of, like I said, a lot of leadership roles, things. One was this fascinating session. They're always different, so I think there's no like textbook here, but one went into this this alternate lifetime and was in this old kind of like medieval village, and they were going to be invaded, and he knew they were going to be invaded, and he just, told everyone to go inside. And he met with the invaders, and they're like, we want what you have, because they had a very peaceful village, and they were prosperous, and they were farming, and they were happy, and they wanted I want what you have. So you're going to pay us, and you're going to give us, half of what you produce, and blah, blah, blah. And he talked them down, and he's like, no, I will show you how to create this for yourself, and you can live with us. So like mentored them.
Wow.
And a lot of the people were there in the village were kind of resistant at first and not really sure if they could trust him, and they had their own location, but basically kept his word and showed them how to be prosperous and happy. And so we completed that lifetime, and then went into another lifetime, and he's like, I'm back in the same location. And it was surprising to both of us. And the divine showed him, this is what I mean by timelines, showed him a completely different version of the exact same lifetime where he didn't own his power. He didn't stand in pure love or in his light. He said, I am ashamed of my fear right now. He's like, I feel my fear. He hid from the invaders. They plundered everything, wiped the entire village out, and he died.
Oh, wow.
So 2 completely different timelines, exact same scenario. This is how powerful we are. This is what I mean by all timelines exist. Which one are you going to position yourself on?
So this is why we're
be in the position. Yes.
Right now we're seeing this.
Yes,
right?
exactly. Yeah. This is exactly, that's what I'm saying. They show us stuff that is relevant to now. This is the role you're playing now, but your consciousness has played every role. So which one are you going to stand in? Are you going to stand in the peaceful way shower, the pure love and light, embodiment of the divine? Or are you going to stand in that fear, that resistance, that duality, that illusion of separation, and continue that cycle? Because I do believe there is going to be can I say that? There's going to be a split at some point. They said, yes, I can say that, because we're already experiencing it. And so it's kind of like the last, like these big waves of light coming in are giving people those opportunities to choose differently. Yeah. And that's exactly what they were showing him in that life. Like, you want to choose fear, there's the results. Right, there's the consequences. Right. You want to choose your empowerment and your peace, and looking for the win-win, looking for the highest outcome. There's that timeline too. So they already all exist, Allison. It's not like and I used to think back in the day, like, I'm waiting for this timeline to get here so I can get on there. They're like, no, it already exists. You get to raise your frequency and your vibration to match and meet that timeline. That's how you experience that timeline. So that's the timeline I experience all the time.
And anybody can do that, right? You just have to decide
anybody can do it.
What you want your reality to be.
Yeah. Well, I don't even decide. I live in alignment with the divine. I say divine will is my will, and the divine's will is my will. So it's like, there's no separation anymore. So of course the divine wants me to be happy and healthy and experience the beauty while I'm here. So that's what I do. I don't want for anything. I don't ask for anything. I don't desire anything. I don't tell the divine, I want this or I need that. No, that would be limitation. That would be limiting what the divine wants to hook me up with. Or so I say the divine loves showing off. They want to show off and, bring me to an even better place. Great. I'm up for that too.
Yeah.
It's always a surprise.
I truly believe that too. And I think that, the fear is it's so funny because it takes hold of us and it seems like it's really strong, but it's actually not very sustainable. It's very weak. It's a very weak energy, actually.
Yeah.
You know, and it just doesn't, if you don't let it take hold of you, it's not going to take hold of you. That's the thing we don't realize. And so we get, it's like being on a roller coaster. You're not going to die, but you're scared, really scared, because you're like, oh my God, what am I getting ready to do here? But you know that it's not a real danger. Right. And so I feel like that's what we're going through right
totally
now,
and that's part of the test too. I mean, I don't like to use the word test, but I'll say that's part of the initiation. Like, are you willing? You don't have to, and I learned this like 20 years ago. You have to be willing to risk everything, even though you probably won't have to pay that price. But if you're not willing to even cross that threshold, then you're going to keep manifesting the same thing over and over again. So it is exactly that. Like, you can experience the fear or the resistance and still do it anyway. And the reward is so much greater than anything you could have resisted. I tell my clients, it's so amazing on the other end of surrender, but getting through surrender is the name of the game. Because otherwise it's not as special.
Yeah, absolutely.
Otherwise you're like, oh, I can do that. But it's like, the game is the game of tricking ourselves that, oh, it's hard. Oh, I'm not that divine. It's all the same game. We just don't realize we're playing the game with ourselves. And then it's like, how could it get any better than this? Because I planned it that way. I am the aspect of the divine that put it all together and tricked myself into not knowing I was the divine, so I could have this excitement and this surprise.
Yeah. That's what's happening. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So when people think that they're standing up again, there's that level of educating yourself, knowing what's happening, but then there's also a threshold right there, right? Because then you can go into that, like, now you're pushing back and you're hating on each other and stuff, so we have to, I guess the best way that I have to the best advice I have for people is to listen to feel your body, feel your emotion, see what's coming up for you in the moment. And if it, I just don't think people, I think people have this feeling that people don't quite know yet the power of what we're talking about, but I think it's going to begin to sink
even
in
if we
more.
plant some seeds, that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I'll wrap up what Allison said. If you're experiencing fear, frustration, or resistance, say, I love you to it. I love you. Thank you. As many times as you have to in order to dissipate those feelings and resistance. That's easy. Perfect. Easy start. Yeah. There you go. Awesome. All right. Dinner time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Rosanne.
You're welcome.